Rain slammed against the prison windows the night Marcus Hale was supposed to die. Inside a cold, concrete holding room beneath flickering fluorescent lights, the former military K-9 officer sat silently in chains, staring at the floor while guards prepared the execution paperwork. No crying, no panic, no final prayer, just silence. The kind of silence that only exists a few hours before death. A prison guard slowly approached the bars. "You're allowed one final request," he said quietly. Marcus lifted his tired eyes. For a moment, it looked like he might ask for food, or freedom, or forgiveness. But instead, he whispered 3 words. "Bring me Atlas." The guard frowned. "Atlas?" Marcus nodded slowly. "My dog." The hallway fell silent. Because Atlas wasn't just a dog. He was a retired Belgian Malinois once trained for military search operations. And 5 years earlier, he vanished the same night Marcus was arrested for murder. The prison woke before sunrise. Heavy boots echoed through the concrete corridors, while officers prepared the execution chamber. Some guards avoided eye contact with Marcus. Others stared too long. Because years ago, Marcus Hale had been called a hero, a decorated canine specialist, a man trusted with impossible missions, until one night destroyed everything. An undercover federal agent had been shot inside an abandoned underground train depot during a covert operation. Marcus was found beside the body, his service pistol still warm, blood covering his hands. And beside him, Atlas barking violently while officers dragged Marcus away in handcuffs. The media called him a monster. The department called him a disgrace. The court called him guilty. And now, after 5 years on death row, Marcus Hale was waiting to die. Outside the prison gates, a black SUV rolled slowly through the rain. Inside the back compartment sat an aging Belgian Malinois, with gray beginning to spread across his muzzle. Atlas. His ears twitched at every sound, every scent, every movement. Officer Elena Ruiz carefully opened the rear door. "You ready, old man?" she whispered softly. Atlas stepped onto the wet pavement. Slow, calm, focused. Even in old age, he still moved like a working dog. The guards near the entrance straightened immediately. Some recognized him from old department photographs. Others only knew the stories. The legendary K-9 that once uncovered explosives overseas and rescued civilians, trapped beneath collapsed buildings. But tonight, he was here for a completely different reason. To visit a man the world believed was a killer. Marcus heard the footsteps before the door opened. The slow clicking of claws against concrete. His breathing stopped. For years, he imagined this moment. Atlas running toward him, whining, recognizing him instantly. But when the door finally opened, Atlas froze. The dog stood motionless in the center of the room, his ears lifted, his eyes locked onto Marcus. And then, a low growl rolled from his chest. The guards exchanged nervous looks. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "Atlas," he whispered. The growl deepened. Officer Elena tightened her grip on the leash. "That's strange," she muttered. "Atlas never reacts like this." Marcus slowly took one step forward. "It's me, buddy." Atlas didn't move closer. Instead, his gaze shifted past Marcus, toward the correction officers standing along the wall. Then the dog suddenly barked, sharp, aggressive. Warning! Every guard in the room stiffened instantly. Atlas wasn't greeting someone. He was alerting to danger. Officer Elena frowned. Something about Atlas's posture felt wrong. This wasn't fear, and it wasn't confusion. It was detection behavior. The same behavior Atlas used during active military operations. The old dog began circling the room slowly, nose twitching, body tense. Then he stopped beside Marcus. Atlas pressed his nose near Marcus's left shoulder, sniffed once, twice, then barked again, louder this time. Marcus flinched. "What is it?" he whispered. Elena stepped closer carefully. "Hold still." She gently pulled back part of Marcus's prison collar, then froze. Beneath faded scar tissue near his shoulder sat a deep puncture wound. Old, hidden, violent. One of the guards stared in confusion. "That looks like a stab wound." Marcus blinked. "A what?" Elena looked up slowly. "You never knew this was here?" Marcus shook his head weakly. "No." And suddenly, something cracked open inside his memory. Rain. Darkness. The underground depot. Atlas barking somewhere in the shadows. Marcus remembered moving through the abandoned train tunnel, with his flashlight raised. Water dripped from rusted pipes overhead. Every instinct told him something was wrong. Then Atlas stopped walking. The dog growled low. Marcus turned, and a figure slammed into him from behind. Pain exploded through his shoulder. A blade. Someone stabbed him. Marcus stumbled against the concrete wall while Atlas lunged into the darkness. Shouting echoed through the tunnel. Gunfire exploded. A federal agent collapsed nearby. Marcus tried to reach for his weapon, but another voice hissed into his ear. "Take the dog." Then everything dissolved into chaos. Marcus snapped back to reality, breathing heavily. The prison room blurred around him. There was someone else there, he whispered. "I remember it now." The guards looked uncertain, but Atlas wasn't finished. The old Malinois suddenly turned. His eyes locked onto a correction officer near the rear doorway. "Officer Bennett." Atlas growled viciously. Bennett stepped backward instantly. "Get that dog away from me!" Helena narrowed her eyes. Atlas barked again, harder, more aggressive. "He recognizes something," Elena said quietly. Bennett forced a laugh. "He's old, confused, but sweat had already formed along his forehead." Atlas lunged forward, not attacking, alerting, the same way trained canine units identify hidden threats. Marcus stared at Bennett. Then another memory surfaced, a voice in the darkness, a hand gripping his collar, the smell of oil and gunpowder. Marcus's eyes widened. "You," he whispered. Bennett froze. "You were there." Silence crushed the room. The warden stepped forward carefully. "Officer Bennett," he said coldly, "explain yourself." Bennett's breathing became uneven. "I don't know what this is," he snapped. "You're trusting a dog over evidence?" Atlas barked violently. Elena's expression hardened. "No," she said quietly. "We're trusting one of the most accurate military scent dogs ever trained." Bennett looked toward the exit, calculating, panicking. Marcus took another step closer. "You stabbed me." Bennett's face drained of color. "No, you framed me." The officer's composure finally cracked. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," he whispered. The room erupted instantly. "What did you say?" the warden barked. Bennett looked around wildly. "We were trying to protect the operation." Marcus felt ice run through his chest. "What operation?" Bennett swallowed hard. "The underground trafficking unit." The room fell silent again. Bennett stared at the floor. "The federal agent found out what was happening down there. He threatened to expose everyone." Marcus's voice trembled. "So you killed him?" Bennett shook his head rapidly. "No, not me." Then Atlas turned again, growling toward another figure standing near the back wall. Deputy Warden Grayson. The old dog's entire body stiffened. And suddenly, everyone understood. Bennett wasn't the mastermind. He was only part of it. Deputy Warden Grayson slowly stepped backward, his face pale, his jaw tight. Atlas barked furiously. The sound echoed through the chamber like an alarm. "That's impossible," Grayson muttered, but his hand twitched near his jacket. Marcus saw it instantly. So did Elena. "Gun!" she shouted. Everything exploded at once. Grayson reached inside his coat, but Atlas moved faster. The old Malinois launched across the room with terrifying force. He slammed into Grayson's arm just as the weapon cleared the jacket. The gun fired once into the ceiling. Guards tackled Grayson to the floor. Chaos erupted. Shouting, radios screaming, boots pounding against concrete. But through it all, Atlas stood protectively in front of Marcus, breathing hard, growling low, protecting him one last time. Minutes later, Grayson sat handcuffed beneath fluorescent lights, while investigators tore through old files and archived evidence. Hidden reports surfaced, missing body cam footage, financial transfers, corruption buried for years. Everything collapsed at once. The warden finally turned toward Marcus, his voice quieter now. "Marcus Hale," he paused. "Your execution has been suspended effective immediately." Marcus said nothing. He simply looked at Atlas. The old dog slowly walked toward him. For a moment, neither moved. Then Marcus dropped to his knees. Atlas pressed his forehead against Marcus's chest. And after 5 years of silence, Marcus finally broke. Tears ran down his face as he wrapped both arms around the dog, who refused to forget him. "You saved me again," he whispered. Atlas let out a soft, tired whine, as if he had been waiting years to hear those words. Sunrise spread across the horizon when Marcus finally walked out of the prison. Not through the rear gates reserved for executions, but through the front entrance. Free. Reporters shouted questions from behind barricades. Cameras flashed endlessly, but Marcus barely noticed them. Atlas walked beside him slowly. Older now, gray around the muzzle, but still loyal, still watching him carefully like he always had. One reporter shouted loudly, "What are you going to do now?" Marcus looked down at Atlas, then toward the rising sun. And for the first time in years, he smiled. "I'm going home," he said quietly. "As long as he's with me, that's enough." Atlas barked once beside him. Strong, proud, certain, and together they disappeared into the morning light.